I'm home. What's up?
Mom couldn't stand it anymore, knowing he was cheating on her, so she made Dad disappear.
That's not true. Allison is misunderstanding something. I have to tell her the truth. It's not like that, Allison. Ian has already passed away. My name is Elise, 39 years old, almost 40. My husband Ian was 2 years older, and together with our 12-year-old daughter Allison, we were a family of 3. We got married when I was 26, having been friends from the same college. Ian was just a funny and kind senior when we first met. But Ian and I shared a love for music, gradually grew closer, shared meals, went to concerts, and deepened our relationship after becoming working adults. We married a year after we started dating. We both thought marriage was still far off, but then Allison happened. My pregnancy led to a shotgun wedding. I loved my job and intended to continue working after giving birth, but became a housewife at Ian's strong wish. Allison's birth was difficult, and it took a toll on my body, so returning to work might have been tough anyway. When I was bedridden with ill health after giving birth, Ian would kindly speak to me. I'll earn enough. You just need to keep the home. I found his words very reassuring. However, my health didn't fully recover after Allison's birth, and the doctor said a second pregnancy would be difficult. Fortunately, Allison was healthy and developed well, quick to learn words and read. But life with a child meant being busy with housework and childcare every day, and working seemed impossible. My parents' home was over half a day's journey away, and Ian's in-laws were more than 2 hours away. Ian and I both, from the countryside, had moved to the city for college. Mom had helped out during Allison's birth, but couldn't often visit afterward, and Ian's job with frequent business trips meant he was seldom home. He often said he wanted me to keep the home. I was raising Allison alone, without relying on anyone. Perhaps a hometown delivery would have been better, but considering the difficult birth, it would have been hard. And maybe I was bound by Ian's words about keeping the home, struggling every day to manage housework and childcare. Mom always said, come back home any time, but I always refused. Ian worked at a travel agency, heading a department dealing with corporate sales. Maybe because of his job, Ian often had business trips, mostly on weekends. He also worked late often, so he was rarely home. This life continued, and sometime after Allison entered elementary school, I finally started to have some free time. When Allison was in 4th grade, Ian suddenly suggested she take the middle school entrance exams. Until then, we had agreed on public middle and high schools, but now he proposed private school. Allison would be better off in a private middle and high school, especially for girls. Probably influenced by last night's news report on middle school exams. A magazine featuring entrance exams peeked out of Ian's bag. I was fine with whatever Allison wanted. She had several close friends in elementary school, in the same school district, so they'd go to the same public middle school. Indeed, going to a private school meant skipping the high school entrance exams, and some schools significantly raised their standards for high school admissions. Maybe there are big advantages to Allison taking the middle school exams. As I pondered, Ian leaned forward, continuing his argument. You might not know, but there are factions in the company based on which university you attended. Your career advancement depends on it. Ian got more passionate, speaking forcefully. You can't go to a good university from a public middle school. It has to be a private school. It might be true, but it meant putting Allison through 3 years of intensive study, not to mention the tuition fees for cram schools. I couldn't fully agree. Ian, satisfied with himself, drank his alcohol, already imagining Allison passing the middle school exams. I ambiguously changed the subject and escaped to the kitchen to do the dishes. Anyway, it's up to Allison. I'll talk to her. Allison is quite pragmatic.
Fine, but I want to choose the middle school myself. and pick the tutoring school too.
Since entering elementary school, Allison has always been quick to learn and grasp concepts, often ahead of the other kids in her studies. She loves reading books, delving into novels without illustrations, and even sci-fi stories. Sometimes she asks me about difficult words in these novels, and often I can't answer. So I gave her the tablet I used to help her research. With Allison's decision to take the exams, I decided to support her fully. I started looking for a part-time job to manage the tutoring fees. While reminiscing with a former colleague, I learned that my old company was looking for people. I contacted my previous employer requesting to be rehired. Allison on the tablet seems to be looking at various tutoring schools. She tells me things like,
"This tutor doesn't seem good," or "The materials here are great."
I gathered information too, asking around at work and among mom friends. When I discussed tutoring schools with Ian, who had been keen on the exams, his response was unexpected. "Okay, she can do as she likes." I thought he would be more involved, suggesting which tutoring school was best, but he seemed disinterested. I had waited for Ian, who came home late, preparing lots of materials, but "Don't talk like that. Take it more seriously." "Just make sure she passes. Keep the home safe." Ian said his piece and went to take a shower. Sure, he's right. But parental support is crucial for middle school exams. Everyone I consulted said so. I even returned to work to earn tutoring fees. Ian just wants her in a good school with no intention of helping. Allison, on the other hand, is mature. She's looking for tutoring schools herself, researching study methods. She's probably more reliable than me. Ian's casual do-as-she-likes comment stuck in my mind like a thorn. Why would he say it like that? I felt pushed away by Ian. Certainly we spend little time together. I can't say we communicate well. I feel distanced by Ian, especially since Allison's birth. As my health wasn't great, the warmth in our relationship faded. I was busy with unfamiliar childcare duties. I sensed Ian didn't see me as a woman, but I didn't want to admit it. Ian probably doesn't think I'm struggling. He suggests hiring a housekeeper when he sees me busy. If I had such money, it'd go to Allison's exam fees. I kept pushing myself, struggling daily. When Allison was in the 6th grade, deep into exam prep, I fell ill. Exhaustion and sleep deprivation left me bedridden. At that time, Ian showed little concern, only saying rest up before leaving for work. Allison contacted Mom. I was saved by my daughter. Mom rushed over, taking flights and trains. She stayed for a while, caring for Allison and me. I ended up complaining about Ian. Mom defended him, saying he's busy with work. I nodded, then covered my head with the blanket, hiding my tear-streaked face. "It's okay to ask for help. You always try to do everything alone." Mom stroked my head gently. Her words and kindness made me feel safe, like returning to childhood. Comforting, yet I felt pathetic. I'm Allison's mother. I need to be strong for her. Perhaps I'm too bound by Ian's words to keep the home. I always thought I had to do it alone. I've wished Ian would be more involved in home and Allison's matters. I wanted help drying the dishes, at least for him not to leave socks and jackets around, to play more with Allison. Deep down, that's what I wanted. But it's because Ian is busy with business trips and overtime work that we can't have this life. Ian works outside. I firmly keep the home. That's our role division. Our family's way, I told myself, suppressing my loneliness. After my health improved and Mom returned home, Allison started saying something unusual.
"From today, I'll wash my laundry myself."
When I looked at Allison, she was holding her laundry. I stayed silent, puzzled, and Allison began to explain.
"I don't want to wash mine with Dad's."
I thought it was just a typical adolescent phase, disliking her father.
Because Dad's laundry smells weird.
I laughed and replied, "It's just body odor from aging, right?"
No, it's a different weird smell, like perfume.
I thought it might be the fabric softener. Anyway, I didn't take it too seriously. "Okay, but I'll sort and wash them." Allison said okay and left the living room. But the story didn't end there. A few days later, when Allison returned from tutoring, she said she had something to tell me. We sat at the dining table, and I listened. I thought she might be troubled with her exams. Allison's grades were good, and her tutor said she would pass her desired school, but perhaps she was worried about something else. "What's wrong? You look so serious. Any troubles with the exams?" Allison stared into my eyes, her expression serious.
No, it's not the studies. It's about Dad.
I was taken aback. A horrible premonition hit me.
Do you know how far it goes?
I swallowed nervously, feeling a cold sweat down my back. "What do you mean?" Allison sighed deeply.
I see. You really didn't know.
I forced a half smile, trying to hide my unease. "Tell me what you mean. Stop if it's a weird joke." But Allison remained serious.
Mom, please calm down and listen. Dad's having an affair.
An affair? I hadn't suspected, but Ian's frequent business trips and overtime had seemed excessive. However, I never expected to hear such words from Allison.
Mom, you really didn't notice, did you?
I thought Ian's just work-obsessed. Allison reached out, holding my hand in hers.
Mom, please face reality. Even if Dad's obsessed with work, have we ever had a family vacation together?
Allison and I had taken long vacations to my parents or in-laws, but Ian was never there. Even short, nearby trips were just the two of us. Looking back, Ian was always absent. Allison continues talking.
Haven't we? Isn't his company too much of a black company?
Ian's company was indeed popular among students for employment. But Ian's a manager. He's busy. I stuttered, trying to cover up. Allison remained calm.
Managers aren't that busy, right? He shouldn't have so many business trips.
I couldn't argue against Allison's points. Management rarely leaves the office for field work, mostly desk jobs. It was the same at my company.
Also, friends with busy parents usually get taken on summer or Christmas vacations. What about us?
I stayed silent, unable to refute. Indeed, everything Allison said was right.
Dad's been irresponsible. I've always thought that.
I didn't want Allison to speak ill of Ian, or to think badly of him. He's not irresponsible, right? He supports our life. Allison interrupted me mid-sentence.
That's a given. Every family does that. What I mean is, does Dad care about you or me?
Allison had realized something crucial. The worst form of abuse from a parent to a child is indifference. Finally, Allison said it. Ian was failing as a father. But how did Allison notice Ian's affair? I hadn't. I asked her how she knew. Allison said she smelled a sweet, unusual scent on Ian's laundry, different from our usual fabric softener. She smelled the same scent on a woman passing by her tutoring school. It seemed like perfume. Allison's tutoring school is near a bustling area with many adult-oriented shops. That's probably where she noticed the scent.
Also, Mom, I'm sorry. I should apologize first.
I wondered what she was talking about and nodded slightly.
Listen, I skipped tutoring and followed Dad on his business trip.
I opened my eyes wide, about to speak. Allison began to talk, cutting me off.
That's why I apologized first. Just listen without saying anything.
I decided to encourage her to continue and nodded slightly again.
Dad wasn't on the business trip alone. He was with a woman, and they were holding hands like lovers do.
I was faced with a harsh reality and unknowingly straightened my back. Allison, perhaps nervous, swallowed her saliva.
On a different day, I went to Dad's office around 7 p.m. Dad and that woman came out and went into a hotel together.
I was confused. The things I had been avoiding were now laid bare before me. More than that, I felt guilty for letting Allison, still in elementary school, go to such a place. Making Allison do such a thing? I'm failing as a parent. Tears started to spill from my eyes. I'm sorry for making you do all this, Allison. I'm a terrible mom. Allison gripped my shoulder tightly with one hand and handed me a tissue with the other.
I just want to see you happy and smiling, Mom.
Allison looked at me with a gentle gaze. Thank you, but don't do anything dangerous like this again, okay? I spoke to Allison with tearful eyes and a nasal voice.
Got it, sorry.
Allison apologized sincerely. I shook my head vigorously. It's not Allison's fault. The one to blame is Ian, of course. But now, it's a matter for adults. I don't want to involve Allison.
But remember this, I'm always on your side, Mom.
I stood up and hugged Allison tightly. After that, Allison stopped talking about Ian. I had suspected Ian's infidelity. I had been turning a blind eye to it. I didn't want to admit it, and I hated the thought of arguing with Ian. I thought enduring it alone was enough to protect our home. But Allison couldn't bear it. I hadn't considered her feelings. I was wrong. I made Allison feel bad and put a burden on her. I work at an insurance company. I know some investigators. I finally decided to ask an acquaintance to investigate. I hesitated to expose our family's shame, but I couldn't keep quiet any longer. I asked someone I could trust. After a while, the investigation results came in. I knew it, but being confronted with reality like this was more mentally painful than I imagined. The envelope contained detailed records and photographic evidence of Ian's infidelity. Every time he said he was on a business trip, he was actually going on dates with that woman, even going on overseas trips. As I read the report, I felt something break inside me. What had I been protecting all this time, and for whom? I had vaguely thought that one day Ian would turn to me, and we would grow old together as a loving grandpa and grandma. Thinking about it now, it was such a naive wish. Reading the report made me feel sick. I took the day off work and lay on the sofa. I couldn't muster the strength to do anything. It was afternoon before I knew it, and Allison returned from school. Allison wanted to read the report, but of course I couldn't let her. Reluctantly, she gave up, ate dinner, and then went to tutoring. Alone at home, I wondered what to do, how to face Ian. All these thoughts swirled in my head when Ian returned. Unusually early. He always comes back early when I least want him to. I quickly hid the documents behind the dish cabinet. I'm home. I heard Ian's voice and turned towards the door leading to the entrance. There was something like a black shadow. More like smoke than a shadow, perhaps. About the same size as Ian. What on earth is this? Ian's voice seemed to emanate from the entity. What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. Yes, in a way, this is a ghost, isn't it? It must be Ian, I suppose. But I just can't recognize him as Ian. Can this even be called a human? But if not, what is it? My mind was racing with various thoughts. It's nothing, really. Just a shadow or smoke, something that resembles Ian. That's what I concluded. I'm back. Huh, what's wrong? Saying that, the Ian-like figure placed a deli item he was holding on the table and started eating. I found myself unable to fully comprehend Ian's words and often ignored him. Lately, Ian hasn't been eating the dinners I make. He usually comes home late. One day he returns early. He brings deli items like this. Since that day, whenever I looked at Ian, he appeared to me only as a blurred shadow. Ian had become something like Ian. My memories of what followed are vague and hazy. Allison told me that I had stopped doing Ian's laundry and only prepared meals for two. Allison said, "It's okay to make just for two. Dad doesn't eat at home anyway." She later told me this with a laugh. There was a day when Ian unexpectedly said he would eat dinner at home. Allison had no tutoring that day, so the three of us were supposed to have dinner together. I had only prepared for two, and Ian seemed suspicious. "Hey, where's my dinner? Allison, tell Elise."
"No way. Why do I have to tell Mom for you?" Allison retorted without even looking at Ian. "You know, Dad isn't needed in this house anymore." Then Allison took out her mobile phone and started talking to someone. "Hello, Grandma? It's Allison. He's here." I was puzzled why Allison was talking to Mom. Allison and Ian were arguing. Words like "don't be ridiculous" and "what are you saying now" were floating around. It was as if a membrane had formed over my ears, and I could hear only muffled voices. After a while, Mom and Dad entered the living room. Allison was talking to Mom on the phone, but could she really come to our house this quickly? "Mom, what's going on?" I asked, Mom confused. Tears were in Mom's eyes. "Elise, you've become so frail." With that, Mom hugged me. Dad stood by Allison, gently patting her shoulder.
There, you did well."
Allison looked up at Dad with a relieved expression. "Grandpa?"
"It's our turn now. Allison, go to your room."
Allison puffed out her cheeks. "No way. I have something I want to say to Dad, who drove Mom to this point." Allison's words, "who drove Mom to this point," stuck with me. Allison turned to me, looking at me with a sad expression. "Mom, do you realize what's happening to you? I told Grandma that you're broken." I tilted my head slightly. What does she mean by "I'm broken"? Allison spoke to Ian. "Dad, Mom doesn't think of you as her husband anymore." Ian seemed surprised by the sudden visitors, but Allison's words brought him back to reality.
"Hey, Allison, what are you saying? Right, Elise?"
Ian turned to me, seeking help. Then Dad gently asked me,
"How many people did you prepare dinner for today?"
I was puzzled by Dad's question. Why would he ask that? What are you talking about? We're not just two. I only made dinner for two. Besides, there's just this weird shadow-like thing. Dad and Mom looked at me with sad eyes. What's going on? Am I forgetting something important?
"Today we're here to talk to this person only."
Dad pointed to the floating Ian-like thing. Dad handed me an envelope he was holding. Confused, I took it. What's this envelope about? Dad's eyes lowered, perhaps with sadness.
"Allison sent this to our house."
Mom's face clouded with tears. "You've even forgotten about the investigator, haven't you?" Mom sounded mournful. I couldn't figure out why Mom was so upset. "Mom, why do you look so sad?" Mom, with tears in her voice, told me something shocking. "That there is your husband, Ian." Ian let out a surprised,
What do you mean, Elise?"
Ian's voice was muffled and hard to hear. I was so surprised I couldn't react at all. "That's what I've been saying. It's your fault Mom broke. She can't even recognize who you are anymore."
"Oh, come on. Stop joking around. You know who I am, right, Elise?"
Ian, still sounding muffled, as if his voice was coming from afar, grabbed my collar. It felt unreal, like I was in a dream. No matter what this shadowy Ian-like figure did to me, I feel like I'm in a dream. That's why it's no use. Look into Mom's eyes.
Let go of Elise, Ian.
Dad pulled me away from the shadow. Then my parents started bombarding the shadow with words. Mom, you might not understand now, but... Allison, holding my shoulders, looked straight into my eyes. I noticed something was off with you, Mom, so I contacted Grandpa. I even sent him the envelope hidden behind the cupboard. My condition, was it really that strange? Indeed, recently, I've been feeling detached from reality, almost like I'm floating slightly off the ground. For some reason, it felt like my feet were slightly lifted off the ground. Mom couldn't stand that he was cheating, so she made Dad invisible to her.
That's not right. Allison is misunderstanding something. I have to tell her the truth. No, Allison, Ian is already dead. The Ian-like figure seemed to say,
What?
Allison looked at me sadly, then turned to Ian.
Dad, that's what's happening.
Ian slowly sank into the ground.
Let's leave for today.
Mom gently embraced my shoulders and led me to the entrance. That day, I left the house with Dad, Mom, and Allison, leaving a weeping Ian behind. A few days later, we visited Ian's parents' home. Allison was staying at a hotel, apparently. Ian's parents apologized profusely to me.
Elise, it's been a while. We wanted to visit you, but Tamara was hospitalized due to stress. I see. Tamara was very fond of Ian. She was too attached to Ian, right, Ian?
At John's call, Ian emerged from the back. There was another Ian-like figure here, which surprised me at the time. Ian, with his muffled voice, began to speak.
Dad, what's all this fuss about?
Ian looked back and forth between my parents and me. Father-in-law John looked sternly at Ian. John, usually a man of few words and a stern demeanor, valued etiquette highly.
What do you mean? What's this all about?
John scolded Ian sharply. Ian stood up straight, startled.
We've received a report from the investigator. Elise, I'm so sorry. It must have been a shock when you found out. So Dad's blaming me too, huh?
John raised his voice even louder at Ian.
How many years has it been since you stopped coming home? Tamara was very lonely without you. Well, I've been busy with work.
Ian started to mumble an excuse.
Don't be ridiculous. We believe those words. Elise reported the same to us.
John's temples were throbbing, his face turning red. He was clearly very angry.
You, how could you?
John threw the envelope containing the report at Ian.
Tamara always talked about how lonely she was to Elise. What am I supposed to do about that?
Ian rebutted in a low voice.
Shut up. And that's your excuse for not coming home.
John pointed at the envelope on the floor. Dad picked up the envelope that had fallen near Ian.
I'll do it.
Now in front of my parents, all the sins Ian committed were about to be revealed. John nodded silently. Dad cleared his throat softly and began reading the document.
You've been in an inappropriate relationship with a female colleague for 13 years.
Ian staggered in surprise. Dad continued speaking calmly.
Moreover, it was a relationship so obvious that it became a topic of conversation in the company.
Ian was trembling silently.
Our relationship started when Allison was born.
My parents and John looked at Ian sharply.
It started when Allison was born. When you were told that it would be difficult to have more children after Allison's difficult birth, you grew closer to that woman.
My parents and John looked sharply at Ian.
But a cruel man, you should have been comforting Elise.
John stamped his foot on the floor in anger. Ian's body shook, shrinking a little.
Because you told Elise to take care of the house. She dutifully focused on the household. allowing you to engage in affairs freely. I didn't mean it like that,
Mom whispered.
What did you really mean by didn't mean it like that? Reproachfully.
Apparently, you also went on overseas trips 5 times, no less.
Was everything he said about business trips actually secret meetings with that woman?
Using your job at the travel agency as a cover. You're rotten to the core. And furthermore, the woman believed she could marry you? Ian, how old is she now?
Dad's anger was escalating, his tone getting sharper.
She's 36.
Ian's voice was hoarse, almost a whisper.
The woman's at fault too for continuing the relationship, but she believed for 13 years that she could marry you.
Mom's words, the worst, echoed in the room.
She regrets the relationship and is deeply remorseful. She's even willing to pay alimony in the divorce proceedings. And yet, what about you? You wasted the best 13 years of her life.
Both sets of parents continued to blame Ian. Ian looked pitiable, almost on the verge of tears. Then, a man in a suit entered the room. He seemed to have been waiting in another room. The man handed John some documents. John placed them in front of Ian.
Sign this.
Ian looked at the document, surprised.
Divorce papers and a settlement agreement. The alimony amount for the divorce trial is written there.
Ian looked up at John with tearful eyes.
Please, Dad, help me.
John stomped his foot hard on the floor.
No. Do you realize Tamara collapsed because of this? Who do you think is to blame?
Ian shrank back.
Tamara said she wanted to hit you herself for what you've done. She cries every day in her hospital bed, regretting your upbringing.
Ian, perhaps thinking of his mother, hung his head and clenched his fists.
Carrying on an affair for 13 years, how can you even say such a thing?
Ian raised his head, perhaps seeking forgiveness.
But you're my parents. Please help me.
John looked away from Ian in disgust.
There's no way we would help you. How can you still be so naive at your age? We're cutting ties with you. No, don't say that.
Ian, with tears in his eyes, clung to John.
The inheritance we were going to leave you. It's going to Allison now. Please don't say that. Help me.
To Ian, help seemed to mean money. Desperate, he began to apologize profusely.
Please, I'm begging you, help me somehow. We won't reduce a single cent of the alimony you and that woman owe.
John signaled to the man in the suit. The man stepped forward.
The lawyer.
The lawyer began speaking in a very calm voice.
Let's discuss the divorce. Elise, you intended to divorce, correct?
It's not about divorce. We are a family of 2.
Indeed, but for your future, we need you to sign here.
The lawyer presented the document to me, pointing at the signature line. Yes, I suppose it's necessary, even though my husband is dead. I didn't think it was okay to leave things as they were. A closure was necessary.
Dead?
At this moment, I truly believed that Ian and I were separated by death. Ian's infidelity had eroded my heart, and his frequent absence had led me to fantasize in my mind that Ian was dead. That's probably why, even when looking at Ian, he appeared to me as a shadow, a smoke, something like Ian. This realization came to me during counseling, that at this time I perceived Ian as dead, and that something like Ian was around me. All I wanted was to protect the life with Allison. The lawyer continued speaking.
There's no problem with signing the divorce papers and the settlement agreement, right?
I nodded deeply, and Ian reluctantly did the same.
Furthermore, regarding the other woman, she has apologized for causing great distress to Elise. She also says she will sue Ian for marriage fraud.
Ian looked stunned, losing all expression.
What? She claims that all the complaints Ian made about Elise were lies, just to deceive her. 13 years of being misled by marriage promises. Therefore, she's suing for marriage fraud. What about the evidence?
Ian, though teary-eyed, started to look defiant. The lawyer pulled out an IC recorder from his pocket.
The woman recorded all the conversations with you. It even includes your marriage promises. There's more evidence besides this.
Ian finally broke down in tears.
The woman said she's awakened from this ordeal. She's determined to break up with him for good.
Ian continued to cry.
Finally, there's something she asked me to say to Ian.
The lawyer faced Ian squarely.
Don't mess with me, you bastard!
The lawyer shouted at Ian with such a loud voice that it shook the room. Then he turned back to us.
My apologies.
Ian, startled, collapsed to the floor. My parents and John cheered with an, "Oh." The lawyer left, saying,
That will be all.
Ian remained sitting on the floor, as if his legs had given way.
Ian, don't think this is the end. You're being disowned from this house and going to a monastery. A priest I know has agreed to take you in. There, you'll train, acknowledge your sins, and accumulate merit.
Ian hung his head, tears streaming, sobbing.
Elise, don't worry. The alimony will be paid out of Ian's retirement fund. He'll also get a little salary.
Dad placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. Even if a guilty verdict for marriage fraud is reached, his salary will be seized. Subsequently, Ian resigned before being criminally charged with marriage fraud. He claimed he didn't want to trouble the company, but likely it was for the retirement fund. When he said goodbye at his company, he was laughed at and badmouthed a lot. The woman also resigned and paid me alimony with her retirement fund. I received a sincere apology letter from her. She hoped to start a new life. Though she was suing Ian for marriage fraud, it seems she agreed to a settlement. The lawyer told me the settlement amount was substantial. Ian entered the monastery as a monk, devoting himself to rigorous training. Waking up at 2 a.m., lights out at 11 p.m., with no days off, being rigorously trained by senior monks. For the often lazy Ian, it must be tough. The monastery's priest reports to John daily about Ian's training progress. The compensation for the divorce trial was paid in full by Ian. Moreover, by making Ian renounce his share of our property, all savings, the house, and land are now in my name. The child support for Allison is partially paid from the small salary from the monastery, with the rest covered by Ian's parents. Since the day I confronted Ian at his parents' house, I've been attending counseling. I didn't need hospitalization. I'm recovering at home, taking my time. Now that the main source of my stress is gone, I've been feeling better lately. I might even be able to return to my job, which I had taken a leave from. Allison successfully passed her middle school entrance exams. Despite everything that happened, she continued studying. I'm really proud of her. Today we're going shopping for Allison's middle school uniform. Imagining her in the uniform makes me excited, but also a bit sad that she's growing up. While I'm taking time to get ready, Allison urges me to hurry up at the entrance. I still want to spend more time with Allison. It seems like it'll take me a while to let go.